Hi team, welcome back. The official unemployment rate in Canada is now 6.9%, which is actually down from a whopping 7% in May. The first decrease since January, but a 0.1% decrease is just a blip and nothing to get excited about. Harsh challenges still exist on the horizon and we need to be prepared for the uncertain economic future that's ahead. We added 83,000 jobs, which was great, but 70,000 of those 83,000 were part-time, which is not what most people who have been out of work for extended periods are actually looking for. Youth and newcomer unemployment, we're talking 15 to 24-year-olds, continues to be dismal, often due to, lack of experience and credential barriers. The youth unemployment rate in Canada is now 13.4%, which isn't the highest in the OECD countries, but it was the number one quickest rising among the countries, which isn't a good sign of economic strength. Young people entering the job market can't find beginner positions, which isn't a good sign of economic strength in Canada, and that's a problem for a country that requires experience to apply for any other position now in Canada, and that's a problem for. I think that some people aren't talking about the key reason that many of these roles are being eliminated, and that's AI. Companies are rapidly replacing cashier roles, beginner customer service roles, entry-level corporate roles. It's AI, like UX with UX AI interfaces, and these jobs are disappearing and not being replaced. AI replacing white-collar workers is happening at an astonishing speed, essentially creating a white-collar job bloodbath. By some estimates, 50% of all white-collar jobs could be replaced by AI in the next 5 years. White-collar office workers, admin workers, customer service phone call associates are being replaced, and that could spike unemployment to at least 10%, as no replacements for these jobs are forthcoming. Another current aspect of the market that AI is dominating that I don't think is being talked about enough is these AI filters that companies are using to filter out resumes. ATS filters, or applicant tracking system filters, are automatically kicking out hundreds of resumes at a time. So if you're not using ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or another AI chatbot to look over and rewrite your resume for keywords before you submit it, the same bots used by the company in the ATS will just automatically filter out your resume, ensuring that you never receive a reply. I think one of the other issues that is huge right now is just ghosting, or not hearing back at all from any application. Not only are you applying to hundreds of jobs, but you aren't hearing back from any of them. And some of that's due to the AI issue we just talked about, but some of that is due to these ridiculous policy requirements corporations have, and which a lot of people don't know about. I used to work for an American top Fortune 50 company, and many of the jobs they posted publicly were only posted because the company was required to do so by the government from where I live, but the company had absolutely no intention of hiring externally for that role, and 9 out of 10 times the internal candidate had already been selected, meaning that job never even existed in the first place. So I used to work for an American, and ghost jobs too, with hundreds of applicants. As per CNBC, ghost jobs aren't actually scams. They're from real companies, like I said, but they're openings that don't actually exist. The company's not really hiring for that role. They've either hired internally, or they're hiring for the future, or due to cutbacks, the role's been cut, or the hiring has been put on hold, and the listing just hasn't been taken down. And the company is letting people keep applying to these positions just to harvest data and then never responding to the applicants. I personally have applied to over 100 jobs in the past year, and I've heard back from less than 10. And I've been able to get 2 interviews a year. Another huge barrier to the job market right now that I've personally found is just so many time-wasting profiles. Why do I have to submit my resume to a company website and then spend another 30 minutes filling out the company's website profile with all the same information that's already in my resume that I already submitted? It's wasting hours a day duplicating all the same information, possibly dozens of times a day. And it's just making the job search so frustrating, so time wasting. Essentially, instead of potentially applying to 20 jobs in a day, I can only apply to maybe 5, 6, 7 because I'm spending hours and hours duplicating the same information. Companies need to get rid of this process and only initiate it for candidates whose resumes they're actually interested in, and then send them an email saying, hey, can you fill this out? I'm not sure why that's so difficult. Looking at kind of the broader picture, Canada in particular is struggling right now because inflation has been fast outpacing wage growth, meaning that things are getting much more expensive, but we're not making enough money to compensate for everything getting so expensive so fast, which is really impacting the purchasing power up here. We can't literally buy as many things as we used to, which is not always a bad thing, but we can't contribute to the economy as much as we'd like because so much of our core income is just being stolen by these crazy increases in food and rent, right? And Canada's tech sector is doing terribly right now too. Of course, we really are in lockstep with the US when it comes to that. But we only have 2 cities that are really affected by that, Toronto and Vancouver. They see the most layoffs amid, these global kind of market corrections that are happening right now. And that means that these high-paying jobs in Vancouver and Toronto are being eliminated, forcing families with these high mortgages, these highs, to either try and find another equally as high-paying position, which is very tough right now, or move somewhere cheaper to live, or just use up their savings. And if those companies or or those people try and move into the public sector, well, this is a mess right now. In times of economic uncertainty, many Canadians turn to the government jobs for stability, benefits, and that causes a high level of competition for civil service right now. At the same time that high level of competition is happening, new Prime Minister Mark Carney, and now he just announced these sweeping public service sector cuts, meaning that these jobs are only going to get more and more competitive and hard to find. He asked for a 15% cut to sectors like Revenue Canada and Social Development Canada, meaning that more people who have these great jobs and benefits now will also be out of work and forced into an already tight job market. And these federal funding cuts will also freeze new grads out of public sector service opportunities that existed in the past that will now no longer exist. Anyone graduating in the next 2 years with a political science degree is going to have a really tough time finding work. Of course, we can't not mention tariffs. I'm mentioning, the job situation in Canada right now. The steel industry, the aluminum industry, the car industry in Canada have all been heavily affected by tariffs. These tariffs make, Canadian products more expensive to buy in the US. And as such, demand has gone down. The decrease in demand has, led companies to cut jobs in various provinces, with Ontario being hit really hard, as that's where most auto parts in Canada are made. The headline, to this article might seem positive, but when you read it, the article paints a bleak outlook, saying that, the uncertainty has hurt current production and future investment in the sector. So what can we outlook saying that conclude from me venting my frustrations about the job market right now. We have a lot of factors killing it. AI is going to become, the issue of the next few years affecting the white collar job market. We'll need to find a way to replace these jobs or introduce a UBI, universal basic income, to avoid thousands of people ending up homeless or on the streets. Wage growth needs to keep pace with inflation, and which most likely will not happen in the short term, as tariff chaos absolutely continues. More and more people just simply won't be able to keep up, ghosting candidates and companies not replying back, and it's all just making people who've been looking for work for an extended period of time give up, and that really needs to change. There's a lot of good people out there that really want to work. Thank goodness one of the provinces is actually doing something about it. Ontario recently passed a new law that states employees will be legally required to notify interviewed candidates of their status and whether they are not moving forward with the application within 45 days of the last interview. It's not a perfect solution, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and if you like the content, subscribe for more. Cheers, team. Take care.